When Julius Caesar crossed into Egypt, he did not just change a war, he triggered the collapse of the Roman Republic. Rome watched as Caesar fell under the spell of Cleopatra, a queen whose beauty and ambition alarmed an entire political class. What looked like a personal romance quietly became a political threat that terrified Rome's ruling elite. When senators finally raised their knives to kill Caesar, they believed they were saving Rome from kingship. After Caesar's death, Rome did not return to freedom. It moved directly toward empire under Augustus. This is History and Society, where we explore how systems quietly shape civilizations long before people understood what was happening. Part 1. When attraction became a political weapon. In 48 BCE, Egypt was not a romantic destination. It was a political trap waiting for the wrong Roman to step inside. Rome was in civil war, and Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria chasing victory, money, and authority. Egypt mattered because grain fed Rome, and whoever controlled Egypt could pressure the entire republic. Inside that fragile kingdom, power was divided between a young queen and her brother, both fighting for survival. The queen understood something most Roman senators never did. Power follows attention before it follows armies. When Cleopatra entered Caesar's presence, she did not arrive as a supplicant. She arrived as an equal. Cleopatra was intelligent, fluent, theatrical, and deliberate, every gesture designed to command the room. Caesar was not inexperienced, but Cleopatra offered something different, legitimacy in the East and loyalty without Roman limits. Their connection was not built on affection alone. It was built on mutual usefulness and shared ambition. Caesar needed Egypt's wealth and stability, and Cleopatra needed Rome's strongest man to secure her throne. What looked like an attraction was actually negotiation, carried out through proximity instead of treaties. Caesar backed Cleopatra militarily, and her enemies fell one by one inside Alexandria. The queen regained power, but the cost was visible. Egypt now leaned directly on one Roman. Caesar stayed longer than expected, not as a conqueror, but as a partner shaping Egypt's future. In Rome, distance turned silence into suspicion, and senators began asking uncomfortable questions. Why was Caesar acting like a king in a foreign land instead of returning to republican restraint? Rumors spread that Cleopatra was not just an ally, but influence given a human form. Rome had endured generals before, but it had never tolerated queens shaping Roman decisions. What began in private now looked dangerous in public, and fear travels faster than facts in Rome. By the time Caesar prepared to leave Egypt, Rome no longer saw a general abroad. It saw the first signs of a king forming. Part 2. When Rome felt threatened by a queen. When Julius Caesar returned to Rome in 46 BCE, he returned as victor, dictator, and a man visibly changed by the East. Rome expected triumphal discipline, but Caesar brought back habits, symbols, and confidence that felt unfamiliar. He accepted honors too easily, sat above senators, and blurred lines Romans guarded carefully. Then the rumors hardened into reality because Cleopatra did not remain in Egypt. Cleopatra arrived in Rome openly, not hidden, housed near Caesar, and treated as more than a guest. She appeared at public events, visible to elites who believed Rome should never bow to foreign royalty. For Romans, this was not romance, it was symbolism, a queen walking inside a republic built on rejecting kings. Caesar erected a statue of Cleopatra in the Temple of Venus, tying her image to Roman religion. That single act spoke louder than any speech, suggesting permanence instead of alliance. Whispers spread that Caesar wanted monarchy, not just power, and that Cleopatra was part of that vision. The birth of Caesarion intensified fear, because Rome understood bloodlines better than words. A potential heir tied to a foreign queen felt like the future slipping out of Roman control. Senators who once tolerated Caesar's ambition now felt personally threatened by it. This was no longer about laws or reforms. It was about identity and survival of the republic. Caesar dismissed the anxiety as jealousy and resistance to change. Cleopatra, meanwhile, observed Rome carefully, learning its fears and weaknesses. Her presence forced Romans to imagine something unthinkable, a Rome influenced by Egypt. Fear united men who otherwise hated each other because fear simplifies choices. By early 44 BCE, conspiracy replaced debate, and silence replaced loyalty. When Caesar prepared to enter the Senate in March, Rome had already decided that removing the man was easier than confronting the future he represented. Part 3, when fear turned into knives. By March 44th, BCE, Rome was calm on the surface, but beneath it, decisions had already been made. The conspirators were not outsiders. They were senators who believed they were acting for Rome itself. Many had benefited from Julius Caesar, but gratitude collapses quickly when fear takes its place. They feared dictatorship, monarchy, and a future where power passed through blood, not law. Cleopatra's influence sharpened that fear because it made Caesar's ambition feel permanent. The Senate House became the chosen stage because symbolism mattered as much as action. Killing Caesar elsewhere would look like murder. Killing him there could be called duty. Warnings reached Caesar, dreams were reported, and omens circulated through Rome. Caesar ignored them, not out of arrogance alone, but because hesitation looked like weakness. On the Ides of March, Caesar walked into the Senate without guards. The first blade struck as a signal, not to kill, but to begin. Then knives rose together, hesitation replaced by momentum. Caesar fell beneath men he trusted, each strike justified in the name of liberty. The murder was brutal, chaotic, and final, but it was not planned beyond that moment. The conspirators expected applause, relief, and instant restoration of the Republic. Instead, Rome froze, unsure whether it had been freed or shattered. No system was ready to replace Caesar, only his absence remained. Cleopatra was gone from Rome, but her shadow still shaped how the act was understood. Caesar was dead, yet fear did not disappear. It multiplied. The knives ended one man's life, but they left behind a power vacuum that the Republic was too weak to survive. Part 4, when one death created an empire. After Julius Caesar's death, Rome did not celebrate. It hesitated because no one knew who truly held power. The conspirators had removed a man, but they had not rebuilt a system. Crowds mourned Caesar publicly, turning supposed liberators into nervous suspects. Power shifted away from the Senate and toward those who could command loyalty and force. Into that vacuum stepped a young, quiet figure most Romans initially underestimated. Augustus, Caesar's adopted heir, understood that Rome no longer wanted chaos disguised as freedom. He did not promise revolution, he promised order. Unlike Caesar, Augustus learned from fear instead of provoking it. He avoided crowns, avoided titles, and avoided visible ambition. But behind restraint, he gathered power more carefully than any Roman before him. Cleopatra's alliance with Caesar had shown Rome what unchecked influence could look like. Augustus used that memory to present himself as the safer alternative. The Republic still existed in name, but its decisions now flowed through one man. Rome accepted this trade, stability in exchange for illusion. The relationship that frightened Rome did not create an empire directly. It revealed how fragile the Republic had already become. Caesar's death closed one chapter, but it opened a system that would last for centuries. Rome no longer feared kings because it learned to accept emperors. What began as a traction in Egypt ended as a permanent transformation of Roman power. If you want to understand how relationships, fear, and power quietly reshape civilizations, subscribe to History and Society and continue exploring how systems really change.